everyone, welcome back to a new video. Today I'm going to be doing something very special that I hope to make into kind of a thing on this channel. I'm going to be renovating a real house from my town that's been abandoned and declared condemned. This is a house I've loved for years and I pass almost every day because it's on one of the main streets going in and out of my neighborhood. It's been empty pretty much as long as I can remember, but it was only condemned within the last few years. I remember way back before I even got the Sims 4, looking at this house and wishing I had the skills to build it in TS3 because it just fascinated me. So now that I got the Sims 4, and I find it a lot easier to make good-looking houses, I decided it was high time that I realized my years-long dream of making this house in the game and kind of bringing it back to its former glory, and I'd argue, even improve it beyond that. It is Folk Victorian, and if you don't know what this is, don't worry, I didn't until recently either. I'll link a card to a video by Farmhouse Vernacular that explains it more in depth, but basically a Folk Victorian is a farmhouse with some elements of Victorian style. For this one, it mostly takes the form of a fancy scalloped gable trim under the highest bit of roof, which I wasn't able to recreate in the game because there isn't any scalloped siding that I could see in the base game. There's a scalloped roof, but the roof on the original house is clearly normal rectangular shingles. It actually looks a lot like the default roof, but I just think the default roof makes it look unfinished, so I changed it. I also changed the concrete on the porch for the same reason, even though the porch of the actual house is just plain concrete. But yeah, the house really ended up more of a standard farmhouse, though it still has this shape that seems to be common in Folk Victorians, with this sort of L-shaped front. I also went in later and changed up the porch to have nicer railings and columns, so I did bring some of those Victorian elements back in that weren't on the original house as well. I figured since the idea is that the Sims are renovating it, they wouldn't leave that boring porch there with no changes. So by the end of the video, the same porch is still in place, with no railings and the simplest columns like the original house. I did go in and fix it after the playtest, and that will be reflected in the screenshots at the end. The shell is pretty simple, just a square really with a little lean-to on the back, which is common in a lot of styles of homes. So if you're one of those people who just puts down a box and isn't sure what else to do with it, just put a lean-to on the back and some sort of porch on the front, and you've got a serviceable enough house. I also suggest dragging the roof down and bringing the eaves either in or out. It makes it look a little more intentional, like you were trying to build a more standard farmhouse. And keep in mind, if the house is old enough, it might have originally been a shed, so there could be a wall there separating it from the rest of the house. But I imagine whoever's renovated this house in the game, the Sims that live there, would have knocked the walls out on the ground floor and made it more open and modern. So now the lean-to is in the kitchen, or is the kitchen, and you pass through to get to the backyard. In the backyard, I didn't really put any tiles or pavers because really that's not something a lot of people do around here. Because our soil is so full of clay and because we're prone to both heavy rains and long periods of drought, our soil shifts a lot. It causes a lot of problems for homeowners like foundation cracking and stuff, but it also means that paved pathways and stuff shift and crack over time too. The house we lived in when I was in high school, there was a sidewalk and a little buried cinder block path going from the front door, and both of them were cracked beyond all heck. The cinder block pathway was actually so cracked that in later years it became dangerous for my elderly parents to cross it, and in the winter it was just plain dangerous because it froze over, especially when we had the icy rains. So I just had the stairs going straight down into the yard because that makes the most sense to me, and it's pretty much the same on the original house. Now, I also didn't add nearly as many trees to the lot. This is mostly for gameplay, so you're not constantly trying to see your Sims through a literal forest, but also because the area around the original house was so woody and overgrown, I figured anyone who bought the house would want to cut most of it down for convenience and just to repair the fence. Speaking of the fence, why don't we have any standard tall privacy fences? We have the ones I use, which are similar. They're like the same thing, but with some sort of cap on top. But I mean the ones that look like very tall, very close together picket fences. I feel like those are the most common kind of fence to see around here, other than chain link, which, again, not in the base game. I just want assets that people actually use, you know. I feel like there's a lot of stuff for very specific styles, or that only work on certain houses, or that are for very nice houses. There don't seem to be as many objects and assets for poor houses, which, let's be real, is going to drastically inhibit my ability to sim my community, because I live in an area that's not necessarily doing that well. And I'm sure a lot of people can feel me on that. I'd say most people live in places where the houses are a little shabby and fences have slats missing and gaps in them. So yeah, I'd really like to see more stuff for working class homes. They all look way too nice. But back to the house. There are 3 bedrooms upstairs and a bathroom. 2 of the bedrooms are designed for younger Sims. There's a toddler bedroom and a teen bedroom. The toddler bedroom did have to be adjusted after the playtest, as did the upstairs bathroom, but I did fix them. Everything in the house works. You can't stand in the very far corner of the bar, but you can mix drinks, so I don't think that really matters. The playtest is also when I adjusted the porch and a couple of other things. And I had a very special Sim do the playtest. Holly Alto! That's right, I've made the infamous Alto family. Vita, Nick, and my baby Holly are all there. I'm actually thinking of doing a Runaway Teen challenge with Holly if anyone's interested in that. I was going to start a history challenge, but I don't have outdoor retreat, and I need to have that to do the prehistoric age. And I just have so many other things that I need more than that. I obviously need to upgrade my mic so I can stop recording with headphones, though I did find a better pair of headphones to record with. And I'd like to buy better editing software. Eventually I'll need a camera. My cheapo mouse is acting up. So if I'm going to do a Let's Play anytime soon, it's probably going to be something other than the History Challenge. Plus, as I do my Learn and Build series, I'll build up a back catalog of more historically styled buildings to use in the History Challenge, so it's probably better to wait on that. But comment below if you'd like to see Holly run away from her family and try to make a life for herself. I would probably also place Vita and Nick in the town, so like, because part of it is that you're supposed to avoid adults so that you don't get reported, and it would be cool if like her parents were trying to come around and see her and being a thorn in her side, especially Nick, because he still has a family-oriented trait carried over from The Sims 3, and she's probably going to feel super bad that she has to avoid her dad, but he is a criminal, so I don't know. And, of course, since he's a criminal, Holly could be feeling like a hit from a rival family, or maybe her parents were killed by rivals. Oh, maybe Nancy Landgrab had her parents killed. Also, I've seen some YouTubers censoring words like murder, so that's why in my last video I didn't quite know how to say what happened to Frank Lloyd Wright's girlfriend. But yeah, I'd love to try the Runaway Teen Challenge with Holly, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'll also be putting these 3 on the gallery, so you can download them if you'd like. Yeah. Anyway, I like to put the furniture down first, especially the larger pieces, because it just helps me mentally block out the space and how I want it to be laid out. Colors are easy to shift later, especially since I don't usually do the walls until all the furniture is placed, but it's a lot more annoying to have to go back in and move furniture around, or change a table that you've already placed chairs at, or a dresser that's already been cluttered up, just because your Sims can't move around it. And this kind of helps me visualize where everything will go in the space so I can more easily plan it out. Because I don't move objects, I can have a hard time fitting things where I want them to go, and sometimes I have to compromise on like whether they're at the angle I want them or if they're as close as I want them to the wall. But the reason I do that is because I just want it to be as easy as possible for people to actually use and play in my builds. I don't want them to have to download CC, I don't want them to have certain packs, and I don't want them to have to remember to put in a cheat all the time if they don't already do that. It's also why I built mostly starter homes before I started this channel. Realistically, when you think about how most people play the game, a lot of people are just going to buy a starter and build onto that and never move. So that's how I played for years, and in my downtime, that's still mostly how I play. And I want those people, the ones who don't know the cheats and don't know how to build and don't have any packs and don't move their Sims, to have nice houses too, because I was that person for a long time, and especially in The Sims 3. But that's neither here nor there, because I don't make Sims 3 content. I can't believe it took me this long to start lighting everything up. I do love that they gave us these mini lights though. I really do wish, though, that there were also smaller options with the nice, warm light that comes out of these paper lantern lights. These are my favorite ceiling lights in the games for bedrooms. It makes the rooms look a lot cozier than these very bright, sterile, cool lights. that's something you want to be thinking about when you're building, not just the style of lamp, but the type and quality of the light it gives off. You don't want very yellow light in your kitchen or a very modern office, and you don't want very clinical lighting in a bedroom or a den. I realized pretty quickly that the hallway, while realistic in a sense, would be way too narrow for actual gameplay. In real life, people would just slide past each other easily, but Sims don't really do that, and no one wants a pileup in their hallway making the kids late for school and the adults late for work, so the team did have to sacrifice a little bit of room space, but they've still got plenty, and now they won't get stuck in the hallway in the morning. Yes, I did replace a bookcase with a second dresser. I went and fixed that too. I also moved the mailbox, which you don't see me do in the video. I'm still really new at all of this, and there are a lot of things I forget still. But like I said, I do kind of want to make this a thing on my channel. There are a lot of really cool abandoned and condemned buildings in my area, and I'd love to do more of these IRL to Sims 4 renovations. And if anyone would like to try this with abandoned buildings in your area, I'd love to see them. Share them under the hashtag SimmingMyCommunity, which is what I'll be tagging all of my builds, and post them on Twitter so I can see them. But I want to stress to only do this with abandoned houses. Don't go and take pictures of someone's house and put them in a video or post them on Twitter without asking. If you're going to do a house someone lives in, make sure you have the owner or the tenant's permission. And if it's a rental, preferably both. And keep in mind that it might be possible to narrow down where you live based on the house and what's around it if someone is determined enough. So if that's a concern for you, don't do it. It's not worth it to accidentally dox yourself when you're not prepared for that. Now, obviously, this floor plan probably isn't anywhere near accurate. The house is condemned, so I didn't go in. I didn't even really feel comfortable going past the fence line and entering the backyard because, condemned or not, it's still someone else's property. And this was the middle of the day on a busy street. I didn't know someone could call the cops or if they'd try or what would happen if the cops did show up. So I just took pictures from the front yard and outside the fence, and I didn't get too close. So I have no idea what it looks like inside, how intact it even is, or if I would have been able to tell what the floor plan looked like anyway. This is just kind of me deciding what I want the floor plan to be. And you know, this is a renovation. The Sims that live here could very well have just come in and knocked out a bunch of walls. Also, there are no trees in the front of the original house, but, you know, this could be years and years after they've moved in. We don't know. Maybe they planted it when they first moved in and now it's like this big tree. Anyway, I just really wanted a tree there. And the sized up magnolia one looked good. I don't really know why it's so small as default, though. There are plenty of magnolia trees around here, and they're all pretty big. I mean, there are a few that have been trimmed down to smaller sizes, but most of the ones around here are ginormous and haven't been trimmed at all, and basically have leaves and flowers going all the way to the ground. There was actually this one nearby my old house. It was super wide, so I thought that was a little weird, but I didn't really question it because the magnolias in the area are pretty big. But then the house got sold, and the new owners trimmed the tree. There's actually trees, 2, plural. They just gotten so big and bushy that you couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. Like maybe in the South, like the old deep Confederacy South, they keep their magnolia trees smaller, but here, they're big and tall and bushy, so, you know, I sized it up. I like to think that the Sims who live here are a fairly young couple, despite having a teenager. They got married young, and they didn't have a lot of money, and they went from rental to rental, probably in San Myshuno, raising their first kid, working their way up in their careers. And then they had the second kid, and they were like, now's the time. We need to go. We need to get a house out in the country, and we need to give our kids the life we always dreamed of giving them before the second kid gets too old. So they bought this abandoned fixer-upper, and they turned it in their dream house for them and their kids. And so now they've just got this pretty simple house that is just got room for everyone, and a big backyard, a nice front yard, and nice trees outside, and, you know, they're just living the dream. Anyway, that's the build. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Follow me on Twitter @SnailySimmer, and have an awesome day. Catch you later, and enjoy the screenshots.